GamingBolt presents 15 absolute worst celebrity-endorsed video games of all time. Video games starring actual real-world celebrities have to be some of the worst games ever created. We're sorry, but it's just true. Chronicles of Riddick is one thing, but many celebrities having themselves star in these awful games while offering little more than their presence. Sometimes consumers might not even get that. Let's run down some of the absolute worst celebrity-endorsed titles of all time. 50 Cent Bulletproof. How gangster is too gangster? When rap star of yesteryear 50 Cent decided to hunt down some brutal hitmen, he's dragged back into the underworld and embarks on a soul-changing adventure. 50 Cent Bulletproof was so reviled upon release with its terrible AI, lame gunplay, and horrible production values that it felt nearly as vapid as the man's music. So of course, with that kind of reception, it's a given that we'd get 50 Cent Blood in the Sand. To be perfectly fair, 50 Cent Blood in the Sand is a vast improvement over the original. Still, the bizarre storyline of 50 and his crew battling to retrieve a diamond-encrusted skull from a paramilitary terrorist group remains utterly horrible. That's not accounting for the repetitive gameplay, though the overall combat and co-op had been improved tremendously. Kim Kardashian Hollywood. Maybe you know her, maybe you don't. Keeping Up with the Kardashians star Kim Kardashian shot to fame in the gaming world with Kim Kardashian Hollywood. The free-to-play role-playing game sees the player taking jobs and ultimately gaining fans to become more famous. Of course, given its nature, there are copious ads, annoying energy restrictions, and excessive microtransactions. Of course. HOFF Zombie Beach. You shouldn't hassle the HOFF, but HOFF Zombie Beach on iOS deserves to burn. It sees David Hasselhoff rolling up on a beach to fight zombies with a Nerf gun, with his singing causing death. Oh, and Pamela Anderson makes an appearance. Want to take a picture with the HOFF? There's a feature for that as well. Want to have some fun? Fortunately, there are many other games for that. Shaq Fu. What happens when Shaquille O'Neal has to kung fu his way all the way through an alternate dimension and battle a mummy? You get the absurd but poorly designed fighting game Shaq Fu. What more is there to be said? While praised at the time, Shaq Fu has been panned in retrospect. Clearly, that wasn't enough to dissuade crowdfunders from backing the sequel, Shaq Fu: A Legend Reborn, to the tune of $473,884. Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. For as famous as Michael Jackson is, he has done the Sonic the Hedgehog 3 soundtrack, after all, his actual game Moonwalker is just torturous. The gameplay is boring, the level design is also boring, and the appeal of dance fighting wears off incredibly quick. Except for the music, which is essentially MIDI-fied versions of Jackson's own tracks, Moonwalker is as forgettable as it is lame. Chuck Norris SUPERKICKS. Chuck Norris is the man, and possibly the eater of worlds as well. However, Chuck Norris SUPERKICKS is just terrible. Released for the Atari 2600, ColecoVision, and Commodore 64, there's only so much you can do with a pixelated figure going around kicking dudes. Aside from naming him Chuck Norris and proclaiming his kicks to be super, as you struggle to exercise any kind of control over him whatsoever. Wu-TANG Shaolin Style. Wu-TANG Clan forever. Wu-TANG Shaolin Style, never. Like, never, ever. The fighting game was lauded for allowing 4 players to battle simultaneously. It was similarly ridiculed for its awful frame rate and controls. Then again, when the premise centers around the clan fighting various martial arts warriors to rescue their master, with the story told through FMVs no less, what more do you expect? Queen the Eye. You would think it impossible for Electronic Arts to publish a 5-CD action-adventure electronic game based on the famous rock group Queen with such awful graphics. You'd think it impossible for said game to be set in a future where an all-seeing eye, with a capital Y for some reason, has taken over and the player must destroy it with the power of Queen's music. You'd think none of this would be adapted into an actual Queen musical. Honestly, we don't even know where to begin explaining all of this, so we'll just move on. NSYNC Get to the Show. Before everyone loved Justin Best, as they should, NSYNC Get to the Show released on the Game Boy Color to presumably no fanfare. The game itself is little more than a few minigames like driving a limo or guiding some band members around objects. It's about as fun as it sounds. Much like Britney's Dance Beat, there isn't a whole lot of NSYNC, though given the lackluster power of the Game Boy Color, it's somewhat understandable. Spice World. Spice World might not have seemed terrible in concept, but the execution begs to differ. The core gameplay revolves around the Spice Girls practicing their dance moves and singing as you awkwardly hit buttons. You can change the camera angles and order of the lyrics, and that's about it. Keep in mind that Spice World was marketed as having innovative gameplay similar to Parappa the Rapper, and that's probably the only time that you'll hear those two titles ever mentioned in the same sentence. Make My Video. Remember when Mark Wahlberg was a rapper? Remember when Criss Cross and NXS were big? Remember when Make My Video was lauded for its success in properly capturing the music video editing process? Well, that last point didn't really happen, and it's actually debatable how much Marky Mark could be classified as a rap artist. Make My Video was abysmal though, executing an inane concept with even worse production value and gameplay, and is really only ever remembered as one of the many terrible games on the Sega Mega CD. Britney's Dance Beat. Imagine Just Dance, but somehow with much less charisma despite having a famous pop icon on its cover. Britney's Dance Beat attempts to capture the star's greatest hits with rhythm-based gameplay, but it's neither an enticing nor challenging enough experience for fans of the genre. Also, strangely enough, there's a distinct lack of Britney throughout. The game is actually about a backup dancer earning a place in her act. We're not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. Lindsay Lohan, The Price of Fame. Lindsay Lohan, The Price of Fame, is a semi-clicker game centered around gaining fans. Swipe enough to purchase upgrades for fans and watch as your virtual Lohan spirals into reality shows, Twitter feuds, bad haircuts, and fake deaths. Which sounds about right now that we think about it. Katy Perry Pop. Intended to cash in on the success of Kim Kardashian Hollywood, Katy Perry Pop failed at an incredibly quick rate. The titles were pretty much the same, save for the presence of Katy Vision to peer into a different, apparently crazier world. Considering how well Kim Kardashian's title did, the fact that Katy Perry Pop failed was especially jarring for developer Glue Mobile. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.